Right. Hello, everybody. So, 2 podcasts in 2 weeks. There you go.
Thank you guys so much for all the sweet messages. Like, we really appreciate it.
Outside of one, we got like a lot of positive response. You guys sent me emails, really sweet emails and everything from a bunch of people. The comments, all that stuff. Cool. So that's all I wanted to know, really, if it was still worth doing or not. Like, and if you guys want to hear us talk, then we'll talk. Like, it's not validation or confirmation. It's just to know. It's just to know where this is going, because you know, like speaking to the void. Like, I'm not narcissistic or arrogant enough to find it fun to speak into the void, just to hear my own voice. Like, I never watch my podcast and never listen to them because I hate hearing myself talk. And so at some point, if it just feels like an exercise in vanity, if no one is interested. But so honestly, like, I'll make that deal. As long as you keep once in a while telling us that you enjoy the podcast, I keep making them. And then,
or something like just comment on the subject, like go like, oh, this I did this with it, or
you know, like, or at least like on the comments anywhere on Instagram, on YouTube, whatever. Just tell us what you would like to hear about, and then I'll do podcasts on the subject because I think most of you want just to hear me talk about whatever I feel like talking. Like, and I appreciate that, but like, just some involvement is enough for me to know, okay, I'll go in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I talk to myself in my own head all the time, so I don't really need to voice it out loud, honestly. But it's just, I'm just happy to know you guys are still on board, and especially as I move toward the autism stuff, because it's such a time-consuming and energy-consuming thing. I just wanted to make sure that side of things were still of interest to most people. You know what I mean? Anyway, so back few months ago now, I said I'd do a podcast about how to get better at CrossFit.
Well, tell me.
Yes, exactly. Right, so let's establish a few rules first. There are 3 types of CrossFit. CrossFit number 1 is people who go to the gym, want to have fun, need the community aspect of it to get their ass to the gym because it's not a priority to them, which I disagree with fully, but I can understand. Training is not a priority. No, I get it. Not everybody's obsessed about training like we are. Like, that's shame on you. But I understand. And so we're gonna have CrossFit number 1, which is basically go to the gym, get fit, look a little bit better naked, health benefits, and the community aspect is really awesome and allows you to get better. So we're gonna talk about training for that CrossFit. CrossFit number 2 is you take training somewhat seriously and you want to compete at a local level because you want your training to mean something, right? That I understand fully. And you have a busy life. Maybe you're not 18 with no job, nothing to do but train all day. And so you want to compete, but honestly, you can't put the time and energy into trying to go even to the regional level because it just... either A, you don't have the talent, or B, you should actually have a life, and CrossFit is not all-consuming. I know, there are those people. And then number 3, you're...
You're saying I don't have a job?
No, you do. You are a housewife, which is a very important job and very time-consuming. It's all day, every day.
My work?
No, all day, every day. No, you don't say housewife, you say stay-at-home wife. Whatever the correct term is. And no, I have all respect for that. My grandmother was a stay-at-home, wife and mother. So my grandmother was my mother, really. And she was the most powerful person in my life and that I'd ever met in the way she was ruling the house. So I have all the respect in the world for what we used to call housewives. And I think the world is a better place with women willing to raise their own kids. I think it makes. I think it makes.
Fucking with you.
I know. No, but no, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people listening. I'm sorry, but I think women raising their own kids make the world a better place. The idea that both parents are going to compete in a workplace and let the nanny raise the kids don't make as good as individuals as we used to. I think the society work forward a certain way, and I think it's extremely arrogant of us to think we can change all that and expect things to get better as they go. Anyway, that's another stuff.
That's another podcast.
Yeah. That's another podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So CrossFit number 3 is you're trying to become a professional at CrossFit, whatever that is, or at least get a lot of followers on Instagram, and compete at a high level. So those are 3 different things, right? So for all 3, you're gonna face want versus need. Most people want what they want. What does that mean? That means they want to go somewhere. They have their goal that they want, and to get there, they want to do what they want to do to get to where they want to go. Right. That never works. Sorry, because you're wrong about what is needed to get to where you want to go.
So explain that sentence, because it's a very powerful sentence with actually a lot of depth in it, because it means a lot of things. Right.
So the problem is most likely you are wrong about what needs to be done to get to go to where you want to go. For example, most likely the timeline is wrong. You think it's 6 weeks, most likely it's going to be a year. You think it takes 1 year to get to that level when it'll take 5. What is needed to get to where you want to go is most likely covers area you are not familiar with. Maybe because you don't have the background in coaching or being an athlete, or at least not in that sport. You have never taken such an endeavor, for example, in your life, so you have no idea what the costs are. Even if you know what the costs are, maybe you don't know the cost of CrossFit. Like there are many reasons as to this, but I got to tell you from my perspective, doing this for a while, is most of the time you are mistaken about what needs to be done to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So I had people that hired me to make what they want to do work. So understand what I'm saying. They did not hire me to take them where they want to go. They hired me to make what they want to do work. But what if what you want to do is not what is needed in order to get to wherever you want to go?
Yeah.
Then I can't do that. So that's actually a problem I've faced many, many times, is that people were like, yeah, but this is what I want to do. And then do that, but understand that what you want to do will take you to a certain place. That might not be the place where you want to go, but it doesn't matter, because if you do what it is that you want to do, then it'll take you to its own place. It's a constraint versus objective thing. Yeah. So that's always an issue. So the better you want to be at something, the more it's going to be about what you need to do and not what you want to do. Yeah. You have to understand that your number one limitator in life is you. And more importantly, whatever you are not willing to do. So understand that sentence correctly. You are limited in life, but what you are not willing to do. Yeah. That's as far as this goes. So
I think that need versus want is very.
The need versus want is everything.
Because in a want situation, it's about what do I want to do, and if in a need situation, it's what needs to be done for me to succeed or for me to improve. And in a need situation, it kind of takes yourself out of it in a way, because it's about improving the thing, not about that instant satisfaction. And that's the thing. The better you want to be at something, the more it becomes about the thing, and the less it becomes about you. So to be good at something, you have to remove yourself and become the thing. Because it's about the thing that you trying to get better at, and not about you. If you hear craftsmen, like the true masters or whatever they want to do, when they talk about what is it that they do, you can tell that they were consumed by that thing. The person that they were prior has been consumed by the art of what they learned. Yeah, and in a way it's, or at least that's what I started to notice more and more as I train and sprinting and whatever. In a way, you can't take it too personal.
No, because
it is personal, it's about your progress, but in a way, it's not at all.
No, you need to be, what you do will consume you.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the most positive way. It's like, you are what you repeatedly do. That's Socrates, therefore excellence is a habit. In that sense of what is it that you do enough will become who you are. Like it will be your identity. If you want to be truly good at something, that thing will consume you. So the faster you shed who you think you are, the faster you'll become good at whatever it is you're trying to do. That version of who you think you are, trust me, over time, it will change. Who you think you are at 18 is not who you will be at 25, 30, 40, 50. Things, just let go of the arrogance, let go of the ego. Ego is a bitch. Most likely you're wrong about who you should be. You will discover things in life about yourself, about who you truly are, where you truly want to go, that are, you know, based on culture, parent, prior trauma, all that stuff, biases. Like, who you are is a far more fluid thing than you think it is.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about gender. So, which is funny that people have fluent genders but not fluent identities.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? That your identity is set, but your gender is not. Like, all right, so that if that doesn't tell you about the decline of Western civilization, I don't know what is. Anyway, so what you will do will consume you. So now that's why there's CrossFit 1, 2, and 3, because let's be honest. If you go to the gym just to get a little bit fitter, maybe see your abs a little bit better in the mirror and all that stuff, then who gives a shit? How about in that case, you go to the gym and you have fun? Yeah. Because if you have fun, you'll go more often. If you go more often, you're going to make progress, and you're going to be fitter, healthier, and a better person within your community, with yourself, with your close ones, and everything. So if you're CrossFit number 1, honestly, my advice is pick the exercise you connect to. Yeah. And then use those in your workouts.
You connect to. Do you like a strength program in it? Do you like a conditioning program? Do you like EMOMs? Do you like arms? Like, you go off of what you like.
So don't make it like, you don't need the super hard programming. You just need to see.
You don't need the crazy gymnastics that fuck up your shoulder. You don't need the
crazy. Right, exactly. So that's gonna be the number one, is you're gonna have to stay healthy, because no one is having fun hurting. Yeah. So don't hurt yourself. That means certain exercises where you go like that are too much work, that require just too much out of your system, your soft tissue, your mental approach and everything, then those exercises need to go away because you don't need them. Yeah. Right? So you gotta stay healthy. That means that there are levels of strength that you're gonna have to achieve in order for your body not to break down. For example, before you keep your pull-ups, you have to do strict ones. If you can't do 10 strict pull-ups, you have no business keeping. And if you can't do, let's say, 20 keeping pull-ups, you have no business doing butterflies. Yeah. Right. So if you max squat is 70 kilo, don't do a WOD with 60 kilo. Yeah. Like, there are certain level of strength that are required in order to move forward. Yeah. Gymnastics, weights, all that stuff. You don't want to snatch because it hurts your shoulders, don't snatch. Do something else. Throw stuff away. Yeah. That's the lowest talk. Yeah, toss the sandbag. It's fine, right? Honestly, the main thing for CrossFit 1 is stay healthy. Choose the exercises correctly, and then have a strength training approach to make sure you don't break, whether it's gymnastics or with weight. And after that, have an assistance work program that just keeps you in one piece. Yeah. Make sure you do your rope pulls, your head carry, stuff like that. Like, just lat pull downs if you need to. Do you need bicep work? Do you need hammies work? Like, what is it that you need to do? Pick the exercise that you connect to. For me, for my hammies, the best thing is a stiff leg deadlift. It's actually what makes me the strongest, whatever you call it, Romanian or stiff leg, doesn't matter. For me, that's what makes everything works well. Why? Because I have an excessively strong mid-back, and my lower back is not as strong as it should be. So as long as I do the stiff leg and I target my lower back, my body is happy. And after that, right glute activation, because I have still an issue with the right glute, right? So I do a lot of glute bridges. As soon as I do that, back pain goes away. Guess what? I can train heavier and more. That makes me happy. We're moving forward.
Yeah, I think also for CrossFit 1, it's important to create an atmosphere that you enjoy. I think for all CrossFit levels, but especially for CrossFit 1, it's like, is there an evening class that you specifically like with those people, or are your favorite people in the morning class?
And by the way, I'll disagree on something. At CrossFit 3, no, you won't enjoy. Yeah. Going to the games, there's nothing enjoyable about that. Yeah. You're going to enjoy being at the games, but getting there, trust me, you're not going to like it, because it's going to suck, and that's CrossFit 3. Anyway, so
that's a compromise part of it.
CrossFit 2 is a bit different because you're going to compete. So if you compete, then you need to be good at specific movements, because now we're going from a training system to an activity, aka a sport. Which is very different, right? CrossFit 1 is training. Having fun is great. Maybe you can push. By the way, you can still train hard. I'm not saying you shouldn't. It's just like there's a price of training hard versus injury, versus time spent at the gym, versus energy you don't have for the rest of the day, that you have to balance with health benefits and looking better. So that's the balance of CrossFit 1. CrossFit 2 is different. CrossFit 2, you're going to compete. You need to be effective at all movements. Mm-hmm. So now we're still going to do the strength training component, except now it's going to be based on the movement that are required for your activity, in that case, CrossFit. So then we're going to have to still have the accessory work program, but now the strength training part is more specific. You're going to have to make sure that overhead squat, you can overhead squat more weight. You're going to have to make sure your back squat is strong. You're going to do a shit ton of Olympic weightlifting. You need to do a strength training program that balances you out on this. For me, CrossFit 2 and 3, for example, learn to sumo deadlift correctly by pushing your hips forward, not up. Everything you do is driving the hips up with Olympic weightlifting. You need to push your hips through. That will help your gymnastics, by the way.
Yeah. Wow, that's something that, by the way, struck me insanely. Sorry to interrupt.
Right, so gymnastics and Olympic weightlifting are almost opposite in that sense. If you look at Olympic weightlifting, because of the bar path, you're going to see your hips going up, and then there's the explosion. But if you look at a sumo, it's actually pushing, or the deadlift is pushing your hips through. The second the bar is around at knee level, the whole idea is hips go, on a good deadlift movement, sumo conventional, you want the hips to never go up, but just go 45 degrees forward. That's gymnastics as well.
Yeah.
So the sumo is a very, very important movement, even though it is cheating, I agree. But it's a very important movement for you to learn because it teaches you to push your hips forward and not up. Such a basic movement you need to learn.
Yeah, I spent like the past, now a week ago, but 2 weeks going whoa, it makes so much sense. Gymnastics.
And it helps the gymnastics so much because the gymnastics is going to be about pushing your hips through. You see that on the dips a lot where people, instead of pushing the hips through, will just compensate by rocking their shoulders back. Right, so a lot of people, when they want to get upright, whether through gymnastics or with weight, you have two choices. You can push your shoulders barely move and your hips go under the shoulders, or your hips don't move and your shoulders go over the hips. If you bring the shoulders over the hips, you're going to arch and affect your lower back a lot. This is why a lot of people have lower back pain out there, is because they move their shoulders over the hip on all movement. And to do that, use flexion extension of the spine a lot and basically blow up their lower back erectors. Their erectors, because they go always shoulder over the hips. Instead of learning to push the hips under the shoulders, which has nothing to do with the back and suddenly is all low abs, hammies, and glutes, max mostly. Those are not so it's not standing up is not that simple. You have two different movements. You can bring the shoulder over the hips or the hips under the shoulders. Those are not the same thing. And in order not to break, you're going to have to learn to bring the hips under the shoulders.
Yeah. But powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting are not the same thing.
So the deadlift and the clean are completely different things.
This drives me crazy.
Stop cleaning your deadlift, right? You're not going to deadlift your cleans, obviously. Well, then stop cleaning your deadlifts.
And don't squat all the way open.
Stop the arching. You guys are you're learning to move your shoulders over your hips, which is fine when the weight is light. It'll be much faster to bring your shoulders over the hips with light weights. The second it gets heavy, you have to learn to put your hips under your shoulders. Those are just the requirements in order not to break. So I don't care how you want to do this, you're going to have to learn what you need to do. What you need to do is have an efficient hip movement. That's for life in general anyway. But
for all purposes
in life, you need to learn to move those hips. I'm talking about dancing. You obsessed person. I'm talking about dancing.
Yes, that's dancing.
Yes, exactly. So we're talking about dancing. So learn to move your hips correctly. So
and also you can't be really good at one movement and not about the other movement pattern.
Because then you're in balance and then you break. So if you want to be CrossFit 2 or 3, trust me, learn to sumo. As in, learn to move your hips correctly. This will save your career. I cannot tell you the number of people I'm putting on glute bridges and sumo. You know why? Because both are about moving your hips, but not your shoulders.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So those are the things that you're going to need for CrossFit 2. First of all, not breaking like this. Engaging your lats and pecs and not defaulting to your traps all the time. Obviously, you've been listening to my podcast, so you know exactly what I mean by that. So you're going to have to do Euro pulls. Rule number 1, for CrossFit 2, don't break. That's rule number 1 for CrossFit 1, but you're less likely to do it. At number 2, because now we're starting to go toward competition, you just don't break. Trust me, this is what you want to think of first. If you start to hurt, you can't be strong while being in pain. That's not happening.
And I also think take your time to do it correctly and not just do it fast. I think that's also a big
Right.
thing.
I remember
because if
Rich
you take your
Froning, when he
time-
talked about that, he lowered the weight so he could move correctly,
Yeah.
all that stuff. CJ said it many times, strength is the ticket to the game, and strength is a long-term game. If you're in pain, you can't be strong. So anytime there's pain somewhere, you fix that first. I don't care what is it you want. If you feel like doing something else, what you need to do is to take care of the pains everywhere. You will be in pain, right? But there's two different types of pain.
Yeah.
There's like the normal pain of I'm getting abused by my training, and that one honestly, get used to it. It's like, like things get roughed up. They always do, so get used to it. But then you also have the pain brought forward by improper movement patterns. Mm-hmm. That will kill you and your career. So that you need to fix. So always fix movement patterns. Yes, training hard means usually kinks and shit hurts everywhere. And the soft tissue is not happy. That's okay. But there's a difference between that and improper movement patterns that are starting to destroy you. You need to make the difference between the two, and you need to fix improper movement patterns, because that will be the end of your career. So that's very, very important.
And even from a craft perspective, in every sport you are committing yourself to, it's always, I think you want to move correctly and have no false movement patterns. I mean, you will always have probably some things where you're less good at or stuff you're not good at, but you always strive to have as little false movement patterns and injuries as possible.
Right, that's CrossFit 3 when we're gonna start talking about like, should you focus on your strength or your weaknesses? We're not quite there yet. That's CrossFit 2. Honestly, CrossFit 2 at that stage, what you cannot have is that one movement is going to make you lose the workout and the competition, right? Even locally. So that means that you're going to have to get used to the idea of not training just inwards, right, in couplets and triplets, but start to do single movement. For example, like you need to get good at the airdyne. You know how you do that? By doing airdyne workouts, not by doing airdyne into burpees, into that stuff, because you can't focus on the airdyne. You have to do just airdyne workouts. So CJ has that one where you go 300 cals to 15 for the ladies, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. Try that one. It sucks to no end. It's so hard, right? But those are the things you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to do that on rowing. Like you're gonna have to do your 500 meter rowing interval for 5 sets, 8 sets, or whatever. This sucks, but guess what?
Yeah.
That's getting better at a specific exercise, and since you're in a sport, then you need to do that. Like if you want to run a 400 meters, then you start to do 200s, but you do 400s, you do the conditioning for the 400s, you learn, you do 300, you learn to turn, because that's actually a massive skill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care at that stage if you like the airdyne or not. We're talking about a sport where you need to perform at. You're going to eat those movements a lot. Like double unders, if you can't do 100s in a row, well, guess what we're doing? Every day we're doing double unders. And so now you have to start decomposing your training based on what you're not capable of doing and training that a lot while trying to get stronger, because that's still your key to success.
Yeah.
So your training is going to be
towards need versus
so now we are in need versus want, and guess what? It's going to be a lot less CrossFit that you're having fun with, like the couplets, the triplets in class, and it's going to be a lot more of decomposing your training into strength and weaknesses and see where we need to spend our time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, assistance work, because you can't break, but now we're going to start to go like, all right, what is it you're not good at? And we're going to start targeting that. We're not so much into strength and weaknesses as much as in CrossFit 3, but where we are right now is like, we're starting to get into the need versus want. So it's like leaving those stones unturned in the sense of what is it that you suck at? It's like, all right, well, you can't be that bad at a movement. And sorry, the cat is right on the microphones. I love you, Kitty, but as usual. So it's very important that you cannot have, you can't. Kitty is lovely, but I think I'm the only person who can pick her up. You're at a stage where you cannot afford to have that one movement that you just don't want to do. So that's where for CrossFit 2 we need to start going. All right. So CrossFit 3. So you've done your local competitions and you're actually quite good. You have the build and the talent necessary to go somewhere in CrossFit. So at that stage, you were assuming that you don't have major weaknesses. right? You can do about all movement efficiently, and you're quite strong. So how do we go from regional level to CrossFit Games level? Well, first of all, if it took you everything to get to regional level, then that's where you stop. Like, let's talk about the unfairness of this world. You have that one right here that at 17 was power cleaning 80 kilos, 185. Right. So that means that if she works hard at it, she'll power clean 120 at some point. She's close to 100 kilo right now at 23.
I'm not 23.
Pretty soon. You give her 5 more years and she'll be at 120 kilos. While weighing 67 kilos, so about 140, 145. It's not fair. It's just where she started. Most women will not start where she started as a strength level. You will most likely not run as fast as she ran an 11.8, 100 meters. A lot of men will not run that. Like, you have plenty of guys in rugby that can run faster than you, but most men in CrossFit will not run under 12 seconds. 12 seconds sounds super slow until it's you. And trust me, running under 12 seconds, there's a lot of CrossFitters that can't do that. So where you start will decide where you end. It's kind of true. It's for strength. Look, the top deadlifters in the world basically walked into the gym and within 1 year were well over 600 pounds. It's just some people are strong. But it's like me with strongman. I just picked up and within less than a year, I was almost at an 800-pound yoke carry. Because my mid back just went, and I was like, oh, I like that. Coming from wrestling, so not necessarily ready for strongman, didn't matter. It's just the way it is, man. But let's say like you walked into a regional level and you want to go to the games. So now, honestly, at that stage, obviously the not breaking becomes more and more important because injuries at that stage are quite consequential, and then suddenly you have to take a year off. But there's an aspect that we don't talk about enough at that level, which is the mental aspect. And I'm not talking about sports psychology, I'm talking about anxiety. If you want to be good at CrossFit, because different energy system, different movements, there is that idea that you have to train 6 hours a day. First of all, it's not true for everyone because Valerie Voborol was not training nearly as much as what you see today. But the anxiety level brought forward by CrossFit is a reality, because the goal of CrossFit is a very interesting goal when it comes to training. Is like outside of the game, you're not really competing against the person next to you. You're usually competing against yourself, against the time, so against the clock, obviously, that you're going to compare later on with other people. But the question is, how do you push on this? Like the comparison that you have because of the nature of CrossFit, a lot of online stuff, it's worldwide and everything, and the amount of anxiety that I see on the women's side of CrossFit is actually a limiting factor for a lot of the game level athletes. Like, you'll see a lot of them that just honestly like 3-4 years of pressure at the game level, and it just takes over your life to a point where I think people are like, oh, screw this.
Yeah. I can also imagine that the component of that, it has so many different aspects that there always will be something you suck at.
Yeah.
It's also kind of heartbreaking in a way, because when I was competing in track, and that was not even on the games level comparison to where I was, but you compete against yourself, against the club, but at least there's also a win because, for example, if you improve, it's great, or you have your craft where you can be good at. But in CrossFit, there's always something you suck at compared to the
so
rest
that
of
means
the field,
that even though you're at game level, like
so
most likely you will lose most workouts to someone at your gym. So if you want to go to the CrossFit game, you're going to have to move with a team of people that are at your level. That's any sport, jiu-jitsu, powerlifting, strongman. Even though powerlifting, you would think you're by yourself. That's not true. You need training partners that are strong. You need people that have the right mindset. It's every world-class level is a team sport, no matter what the sport is, because it requires a lot of people around you to get there. So that means that in CrossFit, you're going to lose every workout to someone. Like if you go train at Invictus, someone will kick your ass. So it's heartbreaking because you're at a very high level, and then you have 2-3 people whooping you on every workout. That's a hard thing. The comparison is not easy to deal with. So that means that to be at CrossFit 3, it's gonna be the requirements on your life are just humongous. Just make sure you want that before you get into it, because I gotta tell you, it will take the space of everything else, because all you're gonna do is CrossFit, the game style, right? You're gonna have to live with the other athletes. It's very much like almost like a pre-adolescent life.
Yes,
like your coaches are your parents and the other athletes are your brothers and sisters, and you can't go out, you can't, like, your food has to be, by the way, the obsession about food, because everything has to be on target all the time. Like, you have so many variables you need to control within CrossFit, and pushing things so hard, because other sports are different. You're just trying to win. If you win 1-0 in soccer versus 3-0, it makes no difference. With CrossFit, it's different, because the way the games are set up is you need to be really high on all workouts. I mean, the requirements mentally are on the rough side. If you're trying to go to the games, it will take over your life. Not always easy. Not always easy. I mean, like, Frazier was a serial killer living in his mom's basement for years. He lived in his mom's basement, training all day and staying at home. Like, I knew a lot of CrossFit Games athletes that lived at home. Yeah, because then they could just focus on training and everything. It's a very strange life, and it can mess with your head. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So, but you see, you told me many times about Valerie that it was not always her first priority, right? So I think
that's why she stayed. Yeah. That's why she stayed like so strong mentally. It's because she had her daughter, her husband, her work, then CrossFit.
I find that so admirable.
Right. So, but I don't know if she could do it today. Like, for example, even if you could translate her and everything, like, it was still the beginning of CrossFit. At this stage where they're all trying to turn pro, you have to have an online presence on Instagram, which is very stressful for a lot of people. The requirements to be at the CrossFit 3 level, we can talk physicality all day. Trust me, you have to have your head straight on and do this for the right reasons. If you don't, the sacrifices required will get to you, and that's being at a world-class level. Is you have to understand what the life you're getting into. It ain't for everybody. It's the same thing for, like, MMA stuff. Like, if you see guys MMA when they're 40, 45, oh my God, they're broken everywhere. Like, Michael Bisping lost an eye. Like the concussions, the stuff, like even jiu-jitsu, like at 50, they're destroyed, their knees, their shoulder.
I think it's also very important that at least you build an identity completely outside of the sport that you're trying to be good at, because otherwise if you stop, it's rough.
Yeah, and then what? And then when you get hurt, like I've seen athletes that push toward that, they get hurt, like they blow up their knee or whatever, so now they have, like, 6 months without training seriously, probably a year, and like it's not good. Mentally, it really, really isn't good. So that's part of the life you're gonna have to choose. After that, honestly, like, it's about moving to a place that has people better than you, so you can be pushed every day. Then obviously the same thing happens, which means, don't get hurt, assistance work, all that stuff. But then at that level, it's a full sport. It's about finding the person who can program your workout in a way that leads to the best results at the game. It's not about CrossFit anymore. It's about understanding the programming of the games and getting better at that, and how to get to the games and all that stuff. So now we're going into, like, you need a CrossFit coach. You can't just have a coach now. You need a CrossFit coach. Someone, again, who understands the programming, who programs correctly, to get you through the regionals into the games and understand the programming of the games, so that you can shine and then be still in one piece on Saturday and Sunday. That's what CJ was so good at. CJ just understands CrossFit so well. He knows exactly how they're going to program, what they're going to do. And honestly, the key of the games is, like, how good are you on Sunday? Rich forming, right? How good are you on Sunday? Because most athletes are destroyed by Saturday, and so they just they go down in flame on Sunday because they just can't take it anymore. That has to be taken into account for your programming, so you have to build up to that, the capacity to last not just Thursday and Friday, but Saturday and shine on Sunday. That's actually a specific programming to be able to do that. Like, a lot of athletes do great Thursday, Friday, and then starts to take its toll. Do you recover in between? How do you recover better mentally, and how do you recover between hard training sessions? Can you still have it by Sunday? Those are actually, this is work. like there's a way to do this, but it ends simple. And now you're in CrossFit 3 where those are the things, because the other stuff is accepted. CrossFit 1, CrossFit 2, you already have all that, it's set up, you know how not to get hurt too bad, you've done your assistance work, you've done all that. Now we're getting into the CrossFit 3, it's like, if you don't have the CrossFit 2, then you're not doing CrossFit 3 anyway. So we assume that you have the CrossFit 2 part. Now it's going to be your approach to programming, your approach to your coach, to your teammates, to all that, to your capacity to handle the stress of what is it you're trying to do. Yeah, there's work to be done there.
So you're saying like it's very important to then, when you start to get into CrossFit 3, to be surrounded by people who are better than you. But you also said that the comparison is so detrimental. So what is the difference between those two?
It's simple. It's not about what you want anymore. It's about what you need to do. So too many people go into the CrossFit 3, and that's where like social media, all that stuff, like as a star or like someone, and then you start to have a conflict between, but I am that person who is either famous, who has a lot of eyeballs on them, and the negation of oneself to be able to do what needs to be done versus what I want to do. There's a clash.
Right?
It's a clash of identity, because on one side, everybody's looking at you as that person, your name becomes known. So you are known, you as a person, as an individual, that needs to then shed their identity as an individual to do what needs to be done versus what they want to do. So you can never have an identity in your training while you need to have one as your own self. That is a fine line and a complicated one to travel. Obviously, you need your own identity in who you are, otherwise you won't last. But there's always a fine line between the two. And when social media starts to push that identity of the person, then it starts to conflict with the requirements of what you're trying to achieve. And many times we go back to that conversation of athletes who do what they want to do instead of doing what they need to do. And a good coach is someone who will explain the difference. But as people get more famous, usually their ego grows. And I've seen many athletes who, after having a big social media following or stuff like that, start to act differently and start to not take advices the same way. The ego starts to get built up, and before you know it, they know what they should be doing better than you, the coach. And then that's usually when they go on their own, and it leads to not good places. Very, very, very often. How many times did you see that happen?
Yeah, it's interesting.
So, but it's not a simple thing. But so that's the thing. And so when you're in CrossFit 3, like you can tell the sacrifices required, how much it takes over your life and everything. Do you want that? Most people do not and should not. It's not a fun life. It's like being a CEO of a large company. Do you really want to work 60 to 80 hours a week for the next 40 years? Because that's what it takes, right? To be a CEO, most CEOs are like, what, over 50? So that means like for 30 years, they work 60 to 80 hours a week. I'm not doing that. I don't understand why anybody would want to do that. Personally, I think you have to be psychotic to be a CEO. But that's why I'm not a CEO. And that's why, honestly, I think CEOs are mostly men. I don't think it's patriarchy. It's because it requires psychotic people. And women are smarter than that. I think it requires like such a, like a tunnel vision toward one thing and one thing only. And then I don't think it's about men versus women. I think it's a personality type, the CEO, that requires a certain form of neurosis, psychosis, whatever you want to call it, that is very, very uncommon, which is why you don't have many of them that are good CEOs, but they're also like people that are willing to work at a level that is completely insane. Yeah. To me, it's a neurosis at the minimum.
Did you ever have the ambition or like want to be at level 3 in A-sport? Like in the say 1 to 3?
No.
Why wasn't there 3? Because you had many talent for many different sports.
The sacrifices, I was like, I'm not doing that. Because I always thought like one day I'm going to be 40. Turns out I was right. And there's a life outside of this. Like I felt always that there was a moment where the thing was taking so much things, I didn't have time for philosophy anymore, for studying, for being smart. And I will never ever sacrifice my intelligence for anything, a person or an activity, ever. So it was always like, no, my intelligence first. My capacity to read, toward philosophy, toward just studies, like even reading studies and stuff like that. Like my mental capacity is what matters to me the most. Mm-hmm. And there was never ever going to be either a person or a thing that was going to get in the way of that. And so that's a sacrifice. I was like, no, I'm not making it. So he always stopped me from going really far.
Yeah.
Like strongman, I could have started doing specific type of drugs and get to a certain level as a 105 kilos. But I was like, no, because I'm 40 at the time, I'm going to be 50. What happens then? And then it takes away from other stuff. Like I'm just not willing to do that.
Yeah. So for you, the idea of being at a level 3 from an intelligence perspective is much more. I mean, you are your work and everything.
In my own thing.
Yeah, in your own thing. It's
yeah, but I'm
interesting.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to go to sacrifice certain things.
Yeah, no, I understand that fully.
But at the same time, like work will never be 80 hours a week where I can't train.
No, exactly.
I'm in need of a certain balance in life, and I'm just not willing to compromise that. I still try to live a life to the best I can. So
I mean, your
what I
intelligence
do,
is so perspective, so specific. Like you
but
have
like
a different way of.
my point is,
being
you're
at
still
level 3
living
with your
life.
Yeah.
You're still living life. When you're level 3, that's what you're doing. You're not living life, you're living level 3. That is not enough for me. I want to live a full life. Being to the point where whatever it is that I do consumes everything else is of no interest to me. Because there is one fear, and that's the only fear I have in life, is to be 80 something on my deathbed, looking back, right, and being judged by the man I will be then. And if I know myself, I know that man will not be kind, and I know he will reflect back on this life in a very harsh way. I am afraid of that man and how he will judge me right now. That's my only fear in life is that. So when I'm on my deathbed, I do not want to look back going, nah, not that. That is not how I want to go into the void. Right? So this is why I have the tattoo of the Thomas Dillon, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. To me, raging against the dying of the light is being able to live the life, a full life. And the level 3 will consume you in ways that I think will not allow you to rage against the dying of the light. Not as a full individual. You will be a partial individual if you go to level 3. And that is your choice, and I admire people that go there. I just know this is not for me. That's all. But that is my vision of life. It does not have to be yours. I thank God there are people that are willing to sacrifice their life for the level 3. Just like thank God there are people willing to be CEOs. Thank God there are people willing to be professional bodybuilders who know most likely they'll die by the time they're 50 but want to go on stage and look a certain way. Thank God for everyone willing to commit their life to a craft within those things. I just don't want that life. So I pursued mine. But this is my interpretation of, do not go gentle into the good night. Then you need to have a full life. Anyway, that's my way of looking at it. Well, this one was long. And then I am on my way to New York today. So
I was
I
going to
will
say,
not...
we have to cut off because you have a plane to catch.
Yeah, I have to leave in an hour. I'm going to New York for the big autism stuff, right, at Rutgers. So no podcast next week, but the week after that, I'll come back and tell you all about the trip and where the autism stuff is going.
This is very, very exciting, guys.
Bye, everybody.
You all. On the next one.